Okay, before I start, I just want to make it clear that BMW and the e90 3 Series use two automatic transmissions. Basically, for the two-wheel drive, you have the GM transmission, and you also have the ZF transmission. The GM transmission is marked right here on the transmission, and the ZF is marked right here. The biggest, easiest, or quickest way to do that, I mean, you can check with the BMW dealer, or you can check with there's a website online that you can also check as well. The GM transmission, which we're going to be doing, has the metal pan, and the ZF actually, I believe, has a plastic pan, which the filter is built in, and so when you're buying the filter, you're actually getting that. They use different transmissions fluids, so you need to check the appropriate one. And the ZF transmission, it's recommended that you replace the Medtronic sleeve up at the top. The pan has to be pulled out, and there's a little lever that you pull down. I saw from another video, and that's because they get lots of leaking. Basically, it's like a plastic sleeve that seals where some wiring goes into the transmission. So, but if you have that transmission, I'll do some research and confirm all that. Okay, I'm trying to remove the underbelly cover where the transmission is here on this e91. It's a 2008, and I've already started pulling out some of the 8mm nuts. So I'm going to continue pulling them out. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 of them, so I'm going to pull them out. Alright, I got the undercover off. Basically was just loosening those screws, and once you got it off, there was like a little prongs that went through on the undercarriage, and you had to twist it, and then it would fit through the slot here, and then you could pull it out. Okay, I'm underneath here again with the undercovering removed. And see, maybe you can see that. I can get that in there. That's the BMW label. It says it's lifetime. This is the GM transmission because of the fact it has a metal oil pan. The ZF has a plastic. There is a little bit of corrosion right here on these two because the air conditioning seems to leak. There was a little bit of water, so water comes through here from when the air condensation from when it drips, so that's probably why that's a little bit rusty. This is a Allen 5mm, and then this fill plug up here is the 17mm hex, I guess it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this first, make sure that I can put transmission fluid in. Once I've loosened that, I'm just going to break it. Then I'll come back, and then I'll pull the drain plug and let it drain out. And then after I drain it out, I'll go back and start removing the I guess I'll probably put the drain plug back in and start trying to remove the pan, but get most of it out. So go from there. While it's coming out, I might put a little transmission fluid on these two, especially since they look like they could be a little bit corroded and have difficulty coming off. BMW recommends that you replace those. I'm going to inspect them because I have the time. I mean, you can buy a whole kit. I mean, the screws are a little bit on the expensive or screw concern because they were, I think it was like $15 and there's only 18 screws, so they're almost $1 a piece. But when you consider a mechanic's time, I mean, when they're doing work, you might as well just pay the $15 and have them installed. If you're trying to save money, you can inspect them and use a little bit of Loctite. So with the removable, but you just want to make sure that that the threads are okay and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed and see if I can break the filler plug up here, if I can get into it. Maybe you can see that right there. and see if I can break that loose. Okay, here's the first run, or the first draining of the transmission fluid. And you can see, I mean, it still has a little bit of hint of red, but pretty much it's, you know, it looks like dark brown, kind of pushing black. You can see that there's some kind of still red in there. Because it is the GM transmission, it does take Dextron 6. That's what the Bentley manual is saying, even though BMW claims it's lifetime fluid. But just wanted you to more or less see. Here's some of it. I don't know if you can see down in there very well, but it's pretty dark. I guess it also helps when you pull it out like that, and you can sort of see how it is up against the jug. So, I mean, it's dirty. I mean, it's not super dirty, but it's dirty, so. Okay, I've pretty much removed all the screws except for two. And I've loosened them. There's one in this corner over here, and then there's one that's up front near the other end here, and that's what's holding in. And the screws came out pretty. They're not super torqued. I think those screws are aluminum anyway, and the transmission's aluminum, so you don't need to torque. I think the torque is very low on them, so it's very loose. If they're stuck in there, there's something wrong. So basically what I'm going to do now, I won't be able to show because I can't videotape and hold a camera at the same time, and it's messy, but I'll take one hand and hold the far end away from the drain plug, and sometimes, I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but if you're concerned about, there is still some fluid in there. There's not a whole lot, but most of it's drained. You can put the drain plug back in, and so you won't have it dripping all over, and you can pull the pan away and then just loosen the last one out. I mean, you can pull the pan out, and then we'll take a look at it from there. Okay, and I've taken the pan off, and the gasket fell right off, believe it or not. On my wife's previous car, she had an e39. It was a 528 and 99. It also had a GM transmission, and the gasket stuck to the transmission, so I was scraping that off. I mean, probably go around and wipe it up, but for the most part, it looks like it came right off all in one piece. So, from what Bentley says is that this is the filter. I have another one, and that should just basically pop right off. You just need to make sure that you get the O-ring out and put the new one in properly. And then I'll pull out the pan. We'll take a look at it. Pan's right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of hard, but I guess right there it is. The pan needs to be cleaned up. There's a magnet on it that needs to be cleaned up, and then like I said, you just install the new filter and the gasket and put the pan back on, and then we've got to fill her up, and then I'll probably flush it out, you know, maybe once, definitely, maybe 2 or 3 times. The reason for that is that there's always fluid left in the torque converters, and nobody has a plug to drain them. I think the only thing cars that ever had that were some of the older Mercedes had a drain plug, and you could drain the torque converter, which was really nice, and then you could get all the fluid out and be done with it and fill it back up and be ready to roll. Okay, here's the pan. I mean, it's actually not too bad. I mean, there's always, you know, going to be some residue, and here's the magnet. Sorry, over here. And that's like fine metal. So it can actually pull right off and gets put back in place. This is really bad at all compared to what my previous wife's car had, but we let that go to $150,000 before we ventured into it. And but after it changed it, everything, you know, it ran really smooth. So, but I guess it looks like the car hadn't been driven too hard, so I'm happy about that. Okay, I've gone ahead and clean the pan and clean the magnet, and did that with just basically brake or carb cleaner and some paper towels. But you want to get all the dirt and small or fine metal pieces that were left at the bottom of the pan, because you don't really want them circulating in the transmission. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but the gasket to the filter is stuck up in that housing up there, and you need to use like a hook or whatever to pull it out, or a gasket puller. So I'm going to try and pull it out. Okay, after quite a bit of persuasion, I was under the car way too long, I finally got out the oil, or I should say the transmission fluid filter seal. That's the old one, and this is the new one. Basically what I had to do was, it sits up in here, I guess like that, and I had to get a hook and come in here and keep going around in circles and prying it and pulling it down until I was able to get a little bit of lip. And then once I got a lip, I was able to stick a screwdriver and bend this in, and then once I was able to bend it in, I started pushing in, and eventually it collapsed enough where it just fell out. But it was a lot of work. I mean, I was almost to the point where I was going to take it to a mechanic and have it done. Hopefully nobody will have that problem, but that's what happened. And basically these are the tools I use. Hook tool like this. This one was better, had a longer reach, but I didn't actually use it because it was kind of flimsy. This was much sturdier, believe it or not, and I had to go around in circles, like I said, pulling it down. And then I used these screwdrivers, and I did use a small hammer, to kind of tap this in to get it to come loose. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've put the new filter in. I basically just pressed the seal, the filter seal on top of the filter, and had it on there, and then I just pressed it into the hole, and now it stays in place. And so now I've got to put the gasket on around, and then put the pan in. And what I'll do is I'll just hand tighten all the screws around, and then I follow the sequence in the Bentley manual. Okay, before you put the pan back on, you want to go ahead and inspect all the bolts and make sure they're fine and not bent, and clean the threads. This is one that I didn't put on, but the threads are straight and everything, and I've gone ahead and cleaned it. And what you would do is get some like Loctite or whatever you want to use, some thread locker, and then I put a little bit like right here, like that, so that it would go ahead and hold in place, and you wouldn't have to worry about the bolts coming loose. I went ahead and ordered a whole pack of the new bolts, but I didn't use them. I just replaced the 3 that were rusted, like that one right there, and that's the part number, and you may be able to order them individually. And the other thing that I did order was a new drain plug in case mine was bad, but I've gone ahead and reused that as well. So those are some things that you may want to consider, along with the pan gasket and the transmission fluid filter. Okay, I've gone ahead and I'm lining the gasket up on the pan. There's little indents. There's one here, and then there's one over here, and it's on both sides. So basically it lines up like that. I can get that other hole in over here. There you go. And it lines up all the holes, and then also it's got the hole, these little tabs right here for the transmission. So basically should be able to screw it in from there. Okay, I've torqued down the pan, I torqued down the drain plug, and I've been pumping, and oops, until it started running out. It stopped, but I'm at the point now where I need to go ahead and start the car and then have this car running, and I've got the car fairly level, as you can see. Well, I guess you can't really see, but and then I need to top it off, because a lot of it drained out of the valves and everything, and it needs to go circulate back in it, and then it actually, to get the correct fluid level, the engine actually needs to be running, so, and the transmission fluid circulating. So that's why I need to do that. I would say probably somewhere around 6.5 to 7 quarts came out, and I've put 3.5 in, and it started coming out, maybe a little bit more than that. This is the 4th quart I'm working on right here, so we'll see how much goes in later on. Okay, my wife has driven her car for about a week, and I've gone ahead and pulled the plug, the drain plug, and I pulled out the fill plug, and I'm just letting all the transmission fluid change. I'm not changing the transmission filter again, but this is from the first pull, or the first drain, and this is just what I just drained out. I mean, you can see a noticeable difference. I mean, this is much cleaner, but even, just looking at it, I mean, it's fairly clean, but you can still see it's not all the bright red that Dectron is normally when you pour it out of the bottle. There was still probably somewhere between 2.5 to 3 quarts, somewhere in between there, probably closer to 2 quarts, 2.5 quarts, that was still in the torque converter. And so that's why I'm flushing it out again. So I'm draining it after a week, and I'm going to let it drain for an hour or so, put the plugs back in, and fill it back up. I may do it one more time and put the synthetic in and then run it and go from there, but again, I'm definitely draining it out again after the first change, so because of the torque converter. Okay, and if anybody says anything, just to let you know, I am putting a Walmart brand in here. I know it's not the best, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let my wife drive the car for a week, and then I'm going to pull the plug, and I'm going to go ahead and put in a full synthetic. And this way, because there is some fluid still left in the torque converter, and I may do that twice with the Walmart, so we'll see how much comes out, or how many goes in, and I may pull the plug again after a week and then do it one more time, depending on when I have time available. But eventually I'll leave this, the better stuff in there, and then we'll see how well the car runs. Okay, and this is a final look of all the drains. This is from the first drain. I don't know if you can see that, but that seems to be the dirtiest, of course. And then this is from the second drain. It's still kind of dirty, but you can see that it's got a redder hue to it. And this is from the last, or the final. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between number 2 and 3, but I think if you look a little bit in the handle, you might be able to tell a little bit of difference between the two of those. And again, this is looking in, this is number 1. I don't know if you can really tell a little bit, but I guess by looking at the side here a little bit. And here's number 2. Looking at a little bit at the handle. And then number 3. So, and again, I drained it, 3 times because of the torque converter. So that's pretty much where I'm in with that. And basically, after you've done that, you just need to go ahead and put the bottom covers back on, same way that you pretty much pulled them off. And that's pretty much the procedure for draining, changing the transmission fluid filter, and then refilling.